Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I'm doing some vintage Christmas crafts using my Cricut Maker 3. For my first project, I'm going to be using this beautiful Jingle Bells sheet music file that I bought from Etsy. I'm going to be adding it to a cushion. So right now I'm just working out the measurements and I'm inputting the measurements that I think I'm going to need. I did then decide to drag it just a little bit, just imagining how it would sit on the cushions. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to combine and unite the different files together so that it will all print out in one design instead of it cutting out little bits and pieces. You can see on the right hand side there are a few different pieces to this design. I then clicked make it and now it's showing me on a mat here how it would look printed. Now, something that I almost forgot to do, but thankfully Cricut has actually got a built-in reminder for us, is I didn't click to mirror it, and because I'm going to be using iron-on material, I have to do this. So I've clicked continue. It's connecting to my Maker 3 via Bluetooth, and then once it's done that, it's going to ask me to set my material, which is the Smart Iron-On, and here you can see it's reminding me, make sure the mirror is turned on. So I'm going over to the left-hand side and I'm going to click edit, and then you'll see it's giving me the option to mirror the design, which I'm doing, and then I'm going to click done. And then once it's done that, I am able to then work out how much material I need. It says on the other side, I need 33 by 37 centimeters. I've loaded it into the machine and now it's going to get to work cutting this design. Also very important that you load your iron-on material shiny side down. Next, I'm going to take my light grip mat and I am just going to be using this to hold my iron-on design down while I am weeding out the excess material that I don't need. It just holds it in place and makes it a little bit easier. I'm then going to start to pull away the iron-on material that I don't need. I did decide to trim off a little bit on the right-hand side there, save that for another project. And then I'm going to start using my little weeding tool to start pulling out everything. Now, this was very involved. If I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't do sheet music that had writing with it, so keep that in mind if you're going to try it. It was very fiddly, but very worth it. Once I've weeded out all the areas that I don't need, I'm going to pull away my design from the soft grit mat and then I am going to start getting ready. I have my little heat press here. The Cricut instructions said to put it on medium, so I've hit that button twice, and then when it's ready, I am going to iron out my pillow here to make sure that it's nice and flat and a perfectly flat surface for our iron-on design to go on. I'm then going to take our design and I'm going to press it on top of the cushion. This has a little bit of stickiness to it, so it does stay in place pretty well. I've then put my heat mat underneath my design and I'm going to start ironing. Now, the Cricut website instructed me to move my iron around for about 20 seconds on each of the designs, so I'm going to do that, moving the mat underneath around as it's not quite big enough as I'm doing this, and I'm just making sure that each section is getting that time that it needs. Once I'm finished, I'm going to let my design cool down and then I'm going to carefully start pulling back the plastic. Now, if there's any sections that haven't transferred, I can just put it back down and apply further heat. So definitely take your time with this part. And here's my finished Jingle Bell cushion. This was definitely a time-consuming project, but it was so worth it. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it would look lovely in anyone's home, or it would make a great gift. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be creating a wooden stocking. This is a design that I created myself. I'm just working out the length that I need it to be. I know that I have about 30 centimeters of balsa wood that I'm going to be working with, so I'm just making sure that it's going to fit and that it's still going to maintain that shape. I'm then going to click make it, and this time I'm going to be using a mat, and I'm making sure it's the right size and hitting confirm. On the mat, you can see there how it's going to sit, so I know how I need to organize my material. Once it's connected, I'm going to go to browse all materials and I'm going to type in Balsa. because I want to make sure that I have the right settings. Now I'm using 1.6mm balsa. I'm selecting that and then clicking next. And also I've already pre-installed my knife blade tool. I'm moving the little rollers all the way to the right so that they don't damage my balsa wood. You can see here I'm actually using the Cricut balsa. I got that from Amazon. I'm also going to be using a strong grip mat. So I'm going to peel off my plastic from my mat. I'm then going to position the balsa wood in the section where I know it's going to cut, and then it is recommended that you also add some masking tape around your wood that you're using to make sure that it stays in place. So I'm just putting a border of that tape around my wood to make sure that it's nice and secure. Once it's all secure, I'm going to load it into my mat. It's going to measure it out. It's going to make sure that everything's happy. I also just made sure I had enough room behind my machine for my design to go back behind. And then once it's happy, I will hit the go button and it will start to cut. Now it will tell you how many passes it's going to take to get your design cut, but this is just an estimate. So you can see here it says cutting 2 of 4. However, I did end up having mine do about 10 passes to make sure that it was cut through enough, and in the end I did actually end up using a little knife to help it a little bit as well. So here, once it's happy, well, it thinks that it's happy, you'll decide if it looks good, you'll take it out. If it doesn't, you'll hit cut more. So you can see here that I am just checking a small section to see if it's ready, and if it's not ready, I just hit the play button to go again. So once it is ready though, I'm ejecting my design out. I'm going to pull it off, and you can see here I'm just sort of pulling away some of that wood. Any area that it didn't pull away, I just used a craft knife, and here is what we're left with. I'm then going to take some of Dixie Belle's chocolate chalk mineral paint. I'm going to add some of the sea spray texture additive because I want to create some texture. I want this to look like weathered wood that has many layers of paint on it. So I'm going to apply my sea spray and chocolate mixture, and you can see I'm dabbing and stippling that product on to create that texture and that worn look. And I'm going to repeat that same process on the front and the other side of the stocking as well. I can envision this on a tree or on a mantle. I think this would make a great gift as well. Something really beautiful that you could personalize. I'm going rustic here, but it would be up to you and what you're trying to achieve. I've just drilled a hole in the top hand corner so that it can be hung. And then I'm going to use some of Fusion's milk paint in the color Hotel Robe. This is just some that I had left over. I like to try and use it up if I can. I'm just putting down a nice layer of that milk paint, and once I'm happy with it, I'm going to take my heat gun out and speed up that drying process to get a bit more of that texture going. But I am ultimately going to go in and add one more coat and also speed up that drying process as well. And you can see I'm happy for my brush to skip over any of that texture. It just adds to that vintage look. When my milk paint is dry, I'm going to take some 220 grit sandpaper to do a little bit more of distressing here to add to that vintage look. It's going to pull up any raised bits. I've also gone around the edges, anything to give this that rustic look. As I said before, I think this would make a great gift. You could add a little tag like this. You could do a Cricut vinyl design with maybe a teacher's name on it or a family member's name, and then you could attach it to the stocking, and then you've got a really cute personalized decoration to give as a gift. I'm then going to take some of these little bells. I will link those in the description, and I'm just putting them in a plastic container. I'm not exactly sure how many I'm going to use at this stage, so I'm just putting in a few different sizes. I'm then going to use Dixie Belle's green patina spray, and I'm actually going to pour it over those bells. So this is going to create a bit of a rust reaction, which is why we always say to keep metal away from that when you're using the patina products, because it will start to react. You can see here it's only been in there for a few hours. I am going to take those out and put them on a paper towel, and the air is going to actually continue that rusted aging process. So the next day I came in and this is what we were left with. We have some really fun patina here. I'm going to thread through some twine through the hole that we created on the stocking and then cut off the length that I need. This is so that it can be hung from a mantle or from a tree. I'm then going to tie a knot. Next, I'm going to be wrapping some twine around the top section of our stocking. I'm using twine because I'm going for a rustic look. You could definitely come in with maybe a velvet ribbon for this step. It just depends what look you're going for. So I'm just winding around a couple of times, and then once I'm happy with how it looks, I am going to trim off the end and tie a knot. I'm then going to be adding some of those lovely rustic bells onto that twine, and it will be up to you how many you add. I do end up adding 3 different sizes here. I'm then going to tie a knot to keep those in place. Next, I want to add a little bit of greenery. This also has some lovely little pine cones, so I'm just envisioning tucking those in. But then I decided to add some ribbon. This is from Spotlight Australia. So I'm just going to be tying a really basic bow here. I'm creating 2 loops. I'm then going to tie those loops together, and I'm going to have a bit of a play with how big each of those loops are. I'm then going to remove the greenery briefly and tuck the tail of the bow underneath the twine and then tie another knot. This is going to hold that bow in place. And then once I'm happy with how that looks, I will put that greenery back in place. And here's our finished wooden stocking. I love how this turned out. It looks so rustic and sweet and definitely user-friendly if you're not super comfortable on the power tools to create a larger version of this. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my final project today, I'm going to be using this wood blank that I thrifted for about $2. I'm going to lay down 2 coats of Dixie Belle's Buttercream, and when it comes to doing the outside border, I'm just going to lay down a light coat of that Buttercream because I am going to be going in and adding another color over the top of that. Next, I want to do some stamping, but I need to adapt my green ink from IOD. So it's the Newgrass ink, and I'm going to be mixing up a darker green in one of IOD's mixing bottles. I'm just pouring out what I think is going to be a good amount, and then I'm going to add some of the black to the Newgrass green ink. I want to deepen that color, give it a bit more of a vintage feel. Once I think I'm happy with the amount, I'm going to put the lid back on and shake it. I did do a few little tests on some cardboard and some paper to make sure I was happy with that color, and now I'm adding it to an IOD ink pad. You can see I'm just spreading that ink on there and then using the end of the ink bottle to spread it further. You don't need to put a huge amount of ink in your ink pad. You can always come back and top it up as you need it. Here you can see I'm just testing it out a bit further. I'm just inking up a piece from the Winter Adornment stamp, and you can see it's really deepened up that green beautifully. I'm then going to label my bottle and also my ink pad. Next, I'm going to be using an element from the Winter Adornment stamp. I've just attached the stamp to a sheet of plastic that comes with your stamps, and I'm just inking up the design I want, and then I'm going to position it on my blank there in the corner. I want bits of the greenery peeking out from that border, so almost like we are creating a border of greenery. So I'm just going to keep having a play, inking up that stamp and applying it wherever I think that it will fit. In a few areas I just inked up part of the stamp and then applied pressure just to fill it in, and again here you can see I'm just using part of the stamp, so don't be afraid to adjust how you use your stamps. You can definitely get a really fun, unique look with these. Once my ink is dry, I'm going to be using these stencils that I made with my Cricut Maker 3, and I'm just positioning them where I want them to go. This is the Old English font. It is on Cricut as well. And now I'm just going to use some of Dixie Belle's Muscadine wine, and I'm using a 1/2 inch JRV stencil brush to stencil out my letters. And this is, of course, Merry Christmas in French. If you're going to try this at home, I definitely recommend that you have a paper towel or something nearby that you can offload the excess paint onto. That way you'll get a much crisper design, much less likely to get that bleeding underneath. When that's dry, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's embossing medium. I'm going to take out a small amount and put it into a container, and then I'm going to tint it with my Bronze Luxe Metallic. You can see I already have a little bit in there still left over from a previous project. So I'm stirring it up really well, and then I'm going to be using a JRV stencil, and I'm going to be putting some masking tape down to block off the design that I don't want. I will be sure to link this stencil in the comments. I'm going to position it on the top part of my sign, and then I'm going to start using a palette knife to wipe that embossing medium over the top of our stencil. So we're going to get a raised design here. Now obviously if you don't have this stencil, you could definitely find some other designs to use on Cricut. I just didn't have time to go in and make anything, and I thought I would just use this. I thought it went really nicely with the stenciled letters that I did make on Cricut. So definitely just an idea for you guys here on how you can dress up a sign. So I'm just going to continue adding that product, and then I'm going to use the palette knife to scrape away the excess embossing medium. When that's dry and I've cleaned off the stencil, I'm going to use Paint Couture's Antique Gold. You can see I've repositioned the stencil over the top, and I'm just going to use that antique gold to go over the top of our embossing medium. If I've inspired you to try any of these Paint Couture products, I would love it if you would use my Paint Couture affiliate link. I just get a little thank you from them. I will have the link in the description, and I'll pop it on the screen. I'm then going to carefully peel the stencil away. Any areas that I've gone outside the lines there, I can use a baby wipe to clean that up. I'm then going to use that same antique gold on a small artist brush, and I'm going to go around the edge of our wood blank there, and I'm just going to add that gold all around the border. I then took a smaller artist brush, and I'm just going to go in and add little hints of that gold around the outside of our lettering. I'm not going to trace around the whole design. I'm just going to add some little hints here and there. It might look a little bit like faded gilding over time. It's just going to add a little bit of something special. When that's dry, I'll seal it, and I will also add a hanger on the back. And here's our finished Christmas sign. This was lots of fun to work on. There's quite a few layers here, and I feel like they've really all come together nicely. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and it's given you some ideas on how you can use your Cricut to create some Christmas crafts that would make lovely gifts. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.